This is what happened when a female reporter asked President Donald Trump about Jeffrey Epstein survivors, and his response revealed something deeper about power, accountability, and who gets to ask uncomfortable questions. February 3rd, 2026, and CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Tollins tried to ask President Trump a question during a White House event. Her words were, "What would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten justice, Mr. President? What would you say to the survivors who feel Trump cut her off? You are so bad. You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you." What came next would spark a national conversation. "You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face." Collins responded simply, "Well, I'm asking about survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Mr. President." Trump kept going. "You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. You're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you." This wasn't a random outburst, and it wasn't happening in isolation. Months of controversy over the Epstein files had been building, Trump's position on releasing them kept shifting, and a clear pattern had emerged in how he responded to female journalists asking difficult questions. Understanding why this moment matters requires going back to November 2025, when Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, filed something called a discharge petition the previous September. This is a rarely successful procedural move that can force a vote on legislation even when House leadership opposes it. November 12, 2025, that petition hit the minimum 218 signatures needed, with 4 Republicans and 214 Democrats signing on. 6 days later, on November 18th, the House voted 427-1 to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and only Representative Clay Higgins, a Republican from Louisiana, voted against it. The Senate unanimously approved the bill that same day. Trump signed the act into law the next day, November 19th, but he did it without reporters present. The law required the Attorney General to release all Department of Justice files related to Epstein investigations within 30 days, which meant investigations, prosecutions, flight logs, travel records, and the names of individuals and government officials referenced in the documents. Victim information could be withheld, along with child sexual abuse materials and details of active federal investigations, but the law specifically prohibited withholding information based on embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. December 19, 2025 was the initial deadline. When the DOJ released files on that date, bipartisan criticism came immediately for the extensive redactions. Then, on January 30, 2026, just 4 days before Trump told Collins to smile, the DOJ released over 3 million additional pages. This massive document dump included over 2,000 videos and 180,000 images, totaling nearly 3.5 million pages, and over 500 attorneys and reviewers from the DOJ contributed to sorting through the materials. But here's the thing. Representative Ro Khanna noted something important. The DOJ had identified over 6 million pages as potentially responsive to the law, meaning they only released about half of what they found. So what was actually in these files that made asking about them worthy of being told to smile? December 2025 brought flight logs showing Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet at least 8 times between 1993 and 1996, and 4 of those flights included Ghislaine Maxwell as a passenger. One flight included only Trump, Epstein, and a 20-year-old whose name was redacted. These weren't international trips to mysterious islands, but primarily domestic flights between New Jersey, Palm Beach, and Washington, D.C. An email from an unidentified federal prosecutor from 2020 stated that Trump traveled on Epstein's jet many more times than previously has been reported. The November 12, 2025 release included something more direct, a 2011 email from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell that said, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump," and he added that an unnamed victim spent hours at my house with him. Maxwell responded the same day with, "I have been thinking about that." The White House called these emails a hoax and a distraction. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt identified the redacted victim's name as Virginia Giuffre, noting that Giuffre had previously said Trump was not involved in her abuse. A 2019 email from Epstein to a journalist stated Trump knew about the girls, though without explanation of what that meant. The files included a 2021 subpoena to Mar-a-Lago Club for employment records during the Maxwell investigation, snapshots Epstein kept of various famous people, including Trump, and by December 2025, over 1,000 mentions of Trump across the documents. January 30, 2026, the DOJ made a point of stating some of the documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. Trump's public position on these files changed dramatically over time. In June 2024, during a Fox and Friends interview, when asked if he would declassify the Epstein files, Trump responded positively, saying, "I guess I would," though he added, "You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there." September 2024, on the Lex Fridman podcast, he said, "Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it, and I'd be inclined to do it." But here's where things shifted after winning the election. July 15, 2025, Trump told reporters the files were made up by Comey. The next day, in a Real America's Voice interview, he said, "I think in the case of Epstein, they've already looked at it. I think all they have to do is put out anything credible." August 22nd brought him saying, "I'm in support of keeping it open, but calling it a Democrat hoax." November 14th, when asked about releasing files, he said, "I don't care about it, released or not." 2 days later, he posted that House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files, because we have nothing to hide. Yet multiple reports said Trump reportedly pressured Republicans not to release the files in July 2025, and his administration reportedly met with House Republicans to urge them to retract their signatures from the discharge petition. Once the petition reached 218 signatures, it became procedurally impossible to remove names. The most revealing moment came July 8, 2025, during a cabinet meeting, when a reporter asked Attorney General Pomby about Epstein. Trump interrupted. "Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. We have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?" He continued, "I can't believe you're asking a question on Jeffrey Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration." And that's when it happened, one day after the DOJ announced that Epstein died by suicide and there was no client list. Trump's history with Epstein goes back decades. In 2002, he told New York Magazine that Epstein was terrific and said, "He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." After Epstein's arrest in July 2019, Trump told reporters, "Well, I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan." Trump has repeatedly stated that Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until Trump kicked him out, and that he had a falling out with Epstein maybe 15 years before 2019. None of Epstein's accusers have accused Trump of doing wrong. Virginia Giuffre's story is central to understanding why questions about Epstein survivors matter. Around 2000, she met Ghislaine Maxwell while working as a locker room attendant at Mar-a-Lago, and she was 17 years old when the abuse allegedly began. 2021 brought her filing a federal lawsuit against Prince Andrew, alleging sexual abuse when she was 17. Andrew denied having sex with her, but settled with her in 2022 for an undisclosed amount, widely reported to be in the $12 to $16 million range. April 25, 2025, Virginia Giuffre died by suicide at her farm in Neergaby, Western Australia. She was 41 years old. Her family said she lost her life to suicide after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. In the months before her death, she had been in a custody battle for her 3 children and had separated from her husband. March 31, 2025, she was in a car collision with a school bus at 110 kilometers per hour, went into renal failure, and was given 4 days to live, but she survived.